Hello, it's Jennifer from heysealemon. In this video, I'll show you how to make a hardcover book with a hollow cover using a case binding method. This book is a smaller size than my previous hardcover tutorial, and it's actually one of my favorite sizes to work with when using case binding because I think it's just really easy to work with. On a side note, I have been using a lot of holographic textures in my DIYs lately, and I've been getting this question a lot. I can't stop looking at holo, and I think it's mesmerizing. I mean, who doesn't want to look at a bunch of tiny little rainbows? So I guess you could say I am, and I do watch Simply Nailogical, so if you have no idea what a holosexual is, go check out her channel. Alright, back to the intro. I will put all of the supplies I used, including links, in the video description below, and let's get into it. For the inside pages, I'll be using 16 sheets of 24-pound paper and 1 sheet of cardstock. Fold all the paper in half on the long side and run a bone folder along the edge to make it flat. Now that all these are folded, I'm going to cut each one in half. I'll be using a paper trimmer for this, but you can also use a craft blade and a roller. Now I have all my paper folded and cut. These 2 cardstock pieces will be the end pages, and I'm going to set that aside and now focus on the other paper to make them into signatures. A signature is a group of 4 folded sheets stacked together. So you just want to slide one on top of the other until you have 4 folded sheets stacked together. Continue doing that for the rest of the pages, and 16 sheets should give you 8 signatures total. Now to mark the binding holes, I'm going to take 1 signature and mark those out on the folded edge. You can make the space between the holes any measurement you like. I did 5 holes that were 1 inch apart from the middle. Now with those pages still stacked together, I'm going to unfold the signature and pierce through those marks with an awl. If you don't have one of those, you can also use a thumbtack. Now I'm going to take off that top page, which has the marks that I made on it, set aside the 3 other signatures, and I'm going to use that top page as a template for the rest of the signatures. So unfold a new signature, place the template on top, and pierce through the marks with an awl. Take the template off and continue that process on the rest of the signatures. Now that all the binding holes are made on the signatures, I'm going to return that template back to those 3 folded sheets. And now I can move on to the stitching portion of the binding. I'll be using sewing thread and a sewing needle for this. Double thread the needle, and I like to work with about 2 feet at a time, otherwise the thread gets a little tangled, but you can also wax your thread if it's hard to work with. Tie a knot on the end, and starting with 1 signature, I'm going to use a kettle stitch method for the binding. If you're not familiar with this, go check out my kettle stitch binding tutorial right here. I will also link it down below. This video will focus on just the binding itself, making it easier to learn from, and then you can apply that method to book projects like this one. After stitching all of my signatures together, I'm going to trim some of those threads on the end so they aren't so long. And to glue the spine of the book, I'm going to use my DIY book press, but you can also use heavy weights or a vise. Make sure all of the signatures are aligned and straight before you press your book. If you want to learn more about this DIY book press, along with other methods you can use to press your books, check out this video right here, and I will also link it down below. To glue the spine, I'm using PVA glue, but you can also use other types of book glue. Brush on 1 coat on the spine so it gets in between the signatures. This next part is optional, but I have this rainbow ribbon which I thought would work well with the hollow cover of the book, so I'm going to add a ribbon bookmark to the pages. To do this, simply glue the end of the ribbon to the spine, and let the glue completely dry. Then remove the text block from the press, and now we can add the end pages. Brush a thin line of book glue on the edge toward the spine, and press the end page down on top of it, making sure it's aligned with the whole text block. And repeat that with the other end page on the other side. This next part is to add strength to the text block. I cut a smaller piece of paper in this size, but it doesn't have to be exact. Center the paper on the spine and make an outline of the text block by creasing the paper. Add some book glue to the spine and glue on the paper. Then add some glue to the sides so it can wrap around the end pages. And press down the paper on both sides. Because this is liquid glue, it has the potential to wrinkle and warp your pages. To prevent this, you can put a piece of wax paper in between both of the end pages. Then put the whole text block in a press so it dries flat. I usually leave mine overnight to dry. If the uneven edges on the pages don't bother you, you don't have to trim it, but if you want a smooth edge, here's how to do it. With a new blade, slowly trim off about 1/8 of an inch on the edge. Be sure to hold the blade upright so you're getting an even cut each time, and cut slowly to get a smooth edge. If you have smudges or uneven parts, you can smooth it out with a nail file or sandpaper. Now the text block is complete, I'm going to move on to the covers, and I'm going to use 2mm board. I'm recycling this board from the back of a paper pad. Try to work with the grain of the board going vertical. This will prevent warping and make your book lay more flat, and I explain this whole thing in more detail in this video right here, along with other tips on how to prevent warping, so check that out. I will also link it in the description below. The size of your cover is based on your text block. Here's the formula I use to figure out the width of my cover board. I cut mine to be 4 inches wide, and here is the formula I use to figure out the height of the cover board. Mine is 5 3/4 inch. Cut out the front and back cover in the same size. And for the spine board, trace the spine of your text block. And cut it out to have the same height as the other boards. Now for the cover paper, I'm using a 12-inch square piece of decorative paper which I found at the craft store. This has a holographic pattern, but you can use any pattern of your choice. On the back of the paper, I'm going to glue the cover board with acid-free extra strength glue stick. You can also use PVA or book glue, but I like to use this on smaller book projects because it dries fast and prevents warping. Glue the board to the paper, leaving about 1 inch of a border around it. Then use your ruler to measure out what is called a hinge on the side of the board. So I marked 3/8 of an inch on the side, and that is how far away I'm going to glue the spine board. Repeat that same measurement on the side of the spine board now, and that's how far away you're going to glue the other cover. And it helps to have a straight edge beneath the board pieces so that they are gluing down evenly. And now you can cut an even border around the cover. I cut mine to be about 1 inch. Now trim the corners like this, leaving just a little bit of paper on the very tip of the corner. And do this to each corner of the cover. Now you're going to glue those flaps over. After applying the glue, I like to crease it like this so it has a nice even edge, and then press over the flap to glue it down. You can also run a bone folder along to smooth it out. And repeat that on all of the flaps. To give your cover nice smooth corners, you can tap down the corners on the table or with a bone folder, and this will smooth out that piece of paper you left on the very tip. At this point, the glue isn't completely dry, but I like to do what I call just breaking in the cover. So I fold over the covers a little bit, put the creases where they will be so that it's not a completely stiff cover you're putting on your text block. Also at this point, I like to see if the text block is fitting correctly in the cover. If for some reason you messed up on your measurements, maybe the text block is too wide, you can go back and trim it at this point so it fits better into the cover. This one seems to be fitting correctly, so now it's time to glue. Put a scrap piece of paper between the end page. I like to put glue on the middle of the board and then around the edge of the end page. But be sure to work fast if you're using glue stick because it does dry quickly. Glue the end page to the cover so that you have about 1/8 of an inch border around it, and smooth out any air bubbles with your hands or a bone folder. Now repeat that same process on the other side. Again, you want to glue down the end page so you have a border of the cover around it. Press the book to completely dry, and if you're using a liquid glue rather than a glue stick, be sure to put wax paper in between the end pages. After it's all dry, your hardcover book is now ready to use. The ribbon bookmark is convenient if you want to mark any of your pages, and the HOLO cover is so fun to look at. I cannot stop looking at it. The pattern on it moves and the colors are constantly shifting depending on what's in front of it. It is so fun to look at. Again, who doesn't want to look at tiny little rainbows? Hit that like button if you want to see more bookmaking videos on this channel, and leave your requests in the comments below if there is something you want to see, and be sure to follow me on my social links. If you make this book, I would love to see it, so add a hashtag #heysealemon to your pics. Be sure to subscribe to my channel heysealemon so you don't miss any of my videos, and hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when I post them. And if you want more bookmaking videos, I will put a whole playlist of all my past videos right here and put another related video right here. All of these links will be down below, and I will see you guys next week with a new video. Bye!